Hi, everyone. Welcome, and thanks for joining us for Stars of Franchising.
Get ready for a roller coaster ride through the world of franchising as we bring you the best stories of inspiration and entrepreneurial grit and turning dreams into franchise realities.
That's right, Vini. From emerging to global brands, we'll chat with the genius minds behind the magic. All brought to you by the Tariq Farid Franchise Institute at Babson College. I'm Ab.
And I'm Vini. Now, buckle up for some serious inspiration.
And we are really excited to have on our podcast Gary Raphael. Gary, welcome home, so to speak.
Thanks, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate the opportunity to contribute to the conversation.
Well, we love it, and we love Babson connections, of course, and what our alum bring to the table, and we always like to start by understanding who you are and your why and your story to give our audience and listeners a chance to understand your background and what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to do that. So I'm a proud Babson alum, undergraduate class of 1988. That didn't always sound long ago, but it sounds sound a little old at this stage. While I was on campus, I majored in finance and investments. So I had a joint major while I was at school. So I was there, as I said, until 1988. When I graduated, I left campus and immediately went into the corporate world. I started my career in property casualty insurance industry, and was in that industry for the better part of 30 plus years. And so I had an opportunity to see how large Fortune 1000 entities worked, and had the good fortune of navigating my way through that environment to have some success career-wise. I eventually found myself on the short end of a corporate merger, and saw it as an opportune time to maybe flex my entrepreneurial muscle. So I went out on my own and I started my own consulting firm, which was a little more daunting than perhaps I was a little naive when I first started, because really what I was selling was me.
Right.
I was selling my background, my skills, my accrued knowledge and experience, and I had some success at it. I ended up working with a firm that then ultimately brought me in-house for a few years to work with them directly and exclusively. And then I went back out and into the consulting space. And while I was again consulting, I started to scratch at franchising and trying to get a sense for sort of what the next part of my journey professionally might look like. And I ended up looking at a lot of things and was ready to go. And I had a signed letter of intent with a fitness franchise. And 3 days later, the world shut down due to COVID. And so my first foray into franchising was actually a bit of a false step, and was really not all that pleasant, because as a consequence of COVID and the impact it had on the fitness industry, I immediately had to engage in some legal activities to sort of recoup some investment that I had put out, not knowing COVID was coming. So anyway, that then ultimately led to me just being smitten with the idea of franchising and what franchising might allow me to do, and I found my way to my current venture.
Thank you, Gary. So with that background, I would like to start with the first question by inviting you to explain to our audience, what do you think people misunderstand the most about franchising?
I think there's this tendency, at least my sense is that there's this tendency to think that franchising is basically just executing someone else's game plan, or their vision. And it's funny, I'm in the suburbs of Washington, D.C., and so I tend to sprinkle political jargon into my conversation. I can't help it. And I think franchising is like politics. It's all local, and it really requires an understanding of your local marketplace, and consumer preferences. And as a consequence, my sense is that no two franchises are the same. Again, I'm fairly new in this. I've only been doing this for about a year and a half in terms of actual ownership. I've been scratching at this for the better part of 5 years, but only really full on and fully invested for the last year and a half. But it's clear, I've done a lot of research and met with a lot of franchisees, and no two, as I said, are exactly alike. And there is opportunity, no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, no matter what vertical you're in my opinion, to give your location all the personal flavor and apply your unique management style and your thought process to your enterprise, no matter what it is. So I worry that people just think it's a little cookie cutter and is not a vibrant environment to apply your vision.
And then maybe if you it's interesting you said that you're saying that, Gary, because a few people out there think that franchising is not entrepreneurship, but what I hear you say here is that no, the core of franchising is the ability to make things happen, just the way an entrepreneur would do. Do you have anything to say on that, please?
Yeah, no, I think franchising is very entrepreneurial. I think in its DNA is entrepreneurship. Frankly, look, you don't, in my opinion, you don't have to invent or create a business to be able to flex your entrepreneurial muscle within its framework, right? I mean, it's just because someone else came up with an idea or a concept that's appealing to you doesn't negate your entrepreneurial thought process and instincts. And you still have to run the business. You still have to run the business every day to make it a success. Somebody's got to do it. And you're still paying bills, and you're still developing the business plan, and no one's doing that for you. Yeah. You're not, the franchisor isn't telling you, they're giving you the product and they're giving you the operational logistics typically, but they're not saying, here's the day-to-day execution roadmap. You're still figuring that out. Your staff is still looking to you for answers and leadership on daily issues. You set the prices and calculate margins, and you represent the business in the local community. You set the tone for the culture within the business. There's just lots of ways to flex your entrepreneurial perspective and mindset in a franchise scenario that I think is really, really, really healthy.
Great stuff, Gary. One of the things that you said that I'd love you to expand a little bit on is, over the last 5 years, as you stated, making a foray into a new venture or chapter, and franchising kind of had you smitten a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit about what you find attractive about the model and the process to get to that first fitness opportunity, the steps you took? Because we have a lot of folks like you who are maybe at a stage in their life they're considering it, and there's the right way to do it with due diligence and other things that I know you've done. But could you just share a little bit about that first part of the process and what drew you in, and then when you had to pivot, kept you drawn in again and led you to your venture you're involved in now?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to. It was purely a passion play. When I came to the conclusion that being an entrepreneur or utilizing my entrepreneurial skill set in a way that I hadn't previously in my corporate life, I quickly, as I alluded to, I quickly dialed into franchising as perhaps a way to accelerate that. Look, as I said, it was 30 plus years, and while I could build a business on my own ground up, and I thought and my consulting firm was in essence building an exercise from ground up. I saw the pros and cons of that, and franchising to me seemed to be a way to accelerate the process and to maybe get there a little faster. And I saw, and as I'm sure you guys can speak to this much more effectively and eloquently than I can, clearly franchising is on the come, right? I mean, there's never been more franchising opportunities than there is as the three of us are sitting here today chatting about it. And the marketplace just grows and grows. The landscape gets broader and broader. And there's a lot of really, really cool things happening in the franchising space. If you go to a franchising expo, which I did, and a conference or two, which I did, to sort of give myself a full measure of what was out there that might be that Gary might find intriguing or attractive, there is no shortage of concepts to consider. I dialed into fitness because it's a particular passion of mine, and I thought I could be good at it from a business perspective, but also immersed in it because I just really enjoy it. And so I wanted to play both sides of the passion equation. And unfortunately, as I said, really the only thing that inhibited me from really getting into it in depth was the advent of COVID. And so that required me to pivot a bit and maybe think about some concepts that I hadn't, that perhaps were a little less sensitive to some of the proximity dynamics that accompany fitness, right? It wasn't working. And so I ended up migrating towards a host of other opportunities. I could list them for you, but we only have so much time. So I ended up ultimately finding my way into a Rita's Ice and Custard franchise, which was an existing franchise that a business partner and I ended up acquiring, and so the pivot to some level was forced a bit by the circumstances in the marketplace, but yeah, it was. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
And then Gary, our next question talks about maybe failures, the biggest failure, even though in your case it was like a false start. But I would imagine you learned something from that experience, even though it was it was forced on you by the circumstances in the world. What was the biggest thing you learned from the experience?
Yeah, Vinny, great question. I mean, so one of the things that I should probably a bit of context I should provide is when I eventually it took me several years to make the decision to jump into fitness, despite the fact that it was clearly someplace that I had always sort of that had always attracted me. It still took me time. And I will tell you that one of the things I struggled with, despite my Babson background and everything else, was just trusting my decision. Like I didn't feel like I initially had really anywhere to go or anyone to talk to. In fact, I think this is an entrepreneurial opportunity in and of itself, is creating infrastructure around this burgeoning marketplace where people like me are coming out of a career. They're thinking about franchising as an opportunity, and it's a little daunting and a little scary. And if you don't have a network to reach out to or resources you can count on to provide you with the kind of feedback you need, when you're out there on your own trying to make this choice, and you're just trusting your instinct, but you're crunching the numbers and you're doing everything else, it can be hard to make that final leap. And I struggled with it, and I struggled with the confidence. And look, the dynamic here is that every franchisor has a great story to tell, and they make you feel like if you're not part of what they're doing, you are making a really horrible decision, right? Like if you're not getting the joke here, then maybe we shouldn't do this because you're not seeing the awesomeness of what we're offering. And so there's a little bit of pressure. There's time sensitivity. There's a whole bunch of other things that at play in that. And if you are not confident in your analysis, that can be a little crippling. And so that's where I would say I don't know if I'd call it a failure, but I would certainly call it a place where I didn't execute the way I probably should have, because I didn't trust myself. And anyway, so as I reached out and started to bring other people into the discussion, it got easier because they can affirm what I was seeing.
Interesting. Thank you.
A lot of great insights, especially I think as you're right and you point to, there's a lot more of people evaluating this, and we hear hope with you sharing your story and other resources to help people on that journey. One thing that I'd love to explore with you and get your thoughts, since you actually have the benefit of working with two franchisors to a certain level, and then your last year and a half with Rita's, is what have you noticed that either in your evaluation or with Rita's or the fitness, good franchisors do in that relationship, to make, to provide an avenue for success, or not do, for that matter, that you've seen in brands that maybe you chose not to align with?
Yeah, no, it's I think I've realized the importance of this. as I've gotten further down the path, and not only from my own observations, but from gleaning gleaning information from conversations I've had with other franchisees, just how good and bad the franchisor-franchisee thing that dynamic can get.
Yeah.
I mean, there are instances obviously where it's really healthy and really constructive, and it's really productive. And then there's clearly examples where that's not the case at all. And it's borderline, I would say, adversarial at some level. I've heard people speak to. So to your question, I would say, clearly if pressed, there has to be, I would say that there has to be a collaborative relationship, clearly. There has to be something where you feel like they're on the same page as you are regarding your objectives and what you're trying to achieve. Mm-hmm. And if you get the sense from talking to the franchisor and they're willing to let you talk to franchisees, an immediate red flag is if they're not inclined to put you in contact with other franchisees, I would maybe pump the brakes.
So true.
But assuming that happens, that franchisee feedback and getting their sense for how supported they feel is tremendously valuable. So, and there has to be this healthy dynamic, this push-pull, whatever you want to call it, that exists between the two entities. You also have to find a franchisor who, in my opinion, is willing to invest in your success. And they want to help you improve your bottom line. Because in essence, you're helping them improve their bottom line. They're generating all the revenue on the back of your effort. And if they're not willing to participate in that process, again, I would maybe question whether or not that's the right relationship. I guess another one I might add to the list is also, it became clear to me too that there were definitely franchisors who understood and embraced the idea of innovation and wanted to create a culture of innovation. In other words, they didn't build a mousetrap and just assume that the mousetrap had been perfected. They were willing to consider the possibility that the mousetrap could actually get better. And that, oh, by the way, it may get better as a byproduct of giving our franchisees the opportunity to contribute ideas about how to make it better. And so that, again, that healthy sort of respect for how the franchisee can be additive and how it can help not just the bottom line financially, but also help to build the brand and move the brand in a different way and move the needle in terms of the breadth of offering or the product lineup or whatever it might be. I think that dynamic is critical as well. Whenever I spoke to people who were unhappy with their relationship, it seemed like one of those things wasn't present.
Right.
It wasn't there, and frankly, when you're a franchisee, every day there's so much to do anyway. The last thing you need to be doing is exercising a ton of energy battling it out with the franchisor.
Yeah.
Nothing positive comes from that.
Wow. So, Gary, when you told us your story, I could imagine there are many millions of people out there who are in the corporate world and thinking, you know what, I still have that entrepreneurial fire in me. I want to go out there and do something. And franchising, as you said, is a route, a possibility. So when you look at those now, if you want to, what would you think is the best trait or maybe strength or resource they should think about if they want to be successful in franchising? What would you say they should try and nail down before they venture into franchising?
Yeah, really another good question. I would say that. I don't know if it's unique. I don't know if it's unique to franchising, but so I'm not sure I can surgically dial it in that precisely. But I would say, and this may feel a little obvious, but or intuitive, but I think you clearly need to be adaptive. You need to be, another word I would use is nimble, I guess. Like in our business. So in the business that I'm in terms of franchising and the kind of product we offer and the way we provide it to our customers, I am heavily reliant on teenagers to help make the magic happen, to produce the sausage, whatever analogy you want to use. And And while that can be an energizing exercise, it also has its element of being a little unpredictable because we're dealing with teenagers. And I can say this because my kids are in the business too, which is a whole nother dynamic of this that we could probably spend an hour on, which is crazy gratifying. But I'll skip past that one. But so there's an element of unpredictability in any business, certainly in the franchising world. You need to be, as I said, a little nimble, certainly adaptable. You need to have contingency plans in place. And you have to make, I've always believed this. I believed this when I worked in the insurance world, and I've believed it my entire professional life. And so much of my opinion on business transaction is based on my role when I'm a customer and what I like and what I don't like, and what I appreciate and what turns me off. And in my opinion, if you're having disruption and something is not working the way you want it to operationally, you can never, ever, ever let the customer feel or see that. And because a customer doesn't care about what your issues are, nor should they. And if you're not nimble, and if you're not adaptable to what's going on and whatever the breakdown is that's occurring, it's going to be hard for you to feel comfortable in this environment, because franchising to some degree is a little bit of a lonely business, right, guys? I mean, it's not. There's not always you have a corporate entity, a franchisor, but they're not there to pick up the bat phone when something bad happens. You got to figure this out on your own. And if you're letting the issue of the day affect how you perform to the client, that will never work, in my opinion, and it'll always be problematic. And as I said, in my view, the customer can never feel the pain you are feeling. They have to be left with the impression that everything went smoothly and perfectly. And if for some reason you're not capable of making that happen, I would suggest to you that maybe you need to think about whether franchising is a good fit for you, because that's a trait that you got to have.
Wow, thank you. That's great.
That is great stuff, because I think, Gary, one of the things we've heard and hear often, and we try to dispel here, is the myth, and you alluded a little bit to it earlier, that I'm going to buy a franchise and it's not hard work, or don't need to be involved in the business. So I think that's great advice and refreshing. You have to understand what we call the service delivery model, to your point, and the unit economics of being in the four walls, which is awesome. I guess to that point, and coming out of the pandemic, and you referenced, the customer experience. I mean, I know labor challenges and the food side and restaurants have been out there. How are you handling some of the current economic challenges, that you're facing on the ground as the one everyone looks to, with respect to labor challenges and other things?
Yeah, it's it has not been easy. I think one of the advantages we have is that we are our product is a fairly comfortable price point. We're not a luxury item. We are, I think, viewed by most people as a bit of an indulgence, a bit of a treat, but an affordable one.
Right.
And even though we've had supply chain issues, and which are easing a bit, and we've had, we as an ice and custard business, we are affected by the vagaries of egg prices and milk prices and dairy and all sorts of other things. And so no matter what your thing is, I'm sure everybody's trying to figure out the right levers to pull in terms of how much of that gets passed on and how much of it do you eat, and when do you get to the tipping point where your customer's willing to accept a little bit of an increase versus your customer's going to make another buying decision and go somewhere else. Right. And so and we have plenty of things that fall under so we're in the vertical called QSR, which is quick service restaurants. And so even though I wouldn't categorize us as a restaurant, when it comes to treats and desserts and that kind of thing, there are lots of other options for people to consider. And so we've been trying very carefully to mix and match and not be do what we think we need to do to manage our costs and to make sure that we're in a good spot, but not pass along the pain to the customer in such a way that it turns them off and gets them headed in another direction. Staffing wise, again, as I said, we're not We're mostly a business that relies on young people to help us. We have we're a seasonal business, so we have challenges sort of while school is in session to get the right mix of support and help. Predicting, we look at sales history and sales forecasts to decide how much staffing we'll need on any given week, on any given day. But generally, we have lots of young people who are eager to come and support what we do, and they view this as kind of a cool job. So we're a little insulated from kind of the labor side of this.
Got it.
Now, Gary, a lot has been happened. A lot happened during the pandemic, and a lot of innovation, technology, name it, that took place. If you, even though you are still your first few years in franchising, do you see any technology or social trends that you think could shape the future of franchising today and in the future?
Yeah, I think there's a couple. And again, I don't know whether I'm qualified to speak to trends that will have kind of a widespread effect on franchising in general, but I can just give you a sense for what I think might help shape the future, sort of generally, and kind of what we've experienced. Look, it's clear that we are, at least to me, that we are now in a world where your customer has lots of ways to share their thoughts and opinions about their experience with your enterprise. Right? And so I think this online environment that has developed and evolved can be extremely powerful, right? It can be a great way to drive growth and to affect opinions of other people, but it can also obviously create negative attention and drive business away. And you got to be. Look, I'm a little older, relatively speaking, and so some of this is adapting to this is again part of this whole idea of being nimble and adaptable. This whole idea of managing your social media footprint and the vapor trail that gets left behind in the wake of somebody giving you some kind of an online assessment. You have to be on it. You have to understand the implications of that. And I've been reading data recently that suggests that there are more and more people who are happy to document and share their displeasure online and to their pool of friends and their network. And if that's left unspoken to or unaddressed, I think most people assume that that's whatever was said was accurate.
Right.
And so that can be debilitating to a small business, any small business, but a franchise particularly. And if that is allowed to sort of just linger out there, I don't think you're doing yourself any favors. You got to really be dialed in, I think, to make sure that you're addressing that stuff effectively and promptly and appropriately, and understanding is this in essence like a gift, and is somebody telling me that we're failing in a place and now I can correct it because they brought it to my attention, or is there maybe some is it more nuanced than what they're portraying it is? And so I think that's clearly something that has the headlight on the train is getting bigger and bigger in terms of that coming now. Instead of being on the edge of my desk, it's coming to the center of my desk, and I have to contend with that and sort of recognize that that's a trend that is going to affect potentially the way my business is seen. Another one that I think is kind of interesting, and it really didn't occur to me actually until I was sort of prepping for our discussion, and it sort of felt like it was a good match for what we were talking about. And that's this whole idea of dynamic pricing. I don't know how dialed in you guys have been yet, or whether or not some of the other guests you've spoken with have scratched at this. But it's clear that in the franchising world, there are some models out there that are starting to mess around with this. And look, it's always been in the hotel industry, right, or whatever. You always pay more for a Friday than you do for a Tuesday if you stay at a hotel, or depending on seasonality and whatever else. But, I see this now in the gym world, right? I still keep my thumb on the pulse of what's happening in the fitness space. And now, you have more gyms who are engaging in this dynamic pricing and movie theaters and all sorts of other places. And is it a stretch to think that it's someday when you up a local fast food place and you want a franchise and you want to order a burger, it's going to cost you more to get it on a Friday during peak hours when the restaurant's busiest versus on a Tuesday? And I think that's going to be a really, really interesting phenomenon to watch, and it seems to be gaining momentum. And this idea of differentiated price, depending upon, as I said, volumes and activity transactionally, is going to really be interesting.
Oh,
interesting, especially as you mentioned, the customers and consumers are getting used to it in other segments. So that'll be great to keep our eye on. One of the things that we're hearing about and we love to ask is, given what you said, Gary, and what we know about franchising, that it's led by an entrepreneur in a community with local knowledge and expertise that really drives value, is this intersection between diversity, equity, inclusion, social impact, sustainability, and franchising. Can you talk a little bit about that as an entrepreneur in a local community with the power to create a culture they want, or having local knowledge, and what you think about when you hear about that intersection?
Yeah, it's a kind of a layered sort of topic for us, actually, and I say that because as an employer of young people have a certain expectation around this issue now.
Yeah.
And they, they're looking not only to consume from or buy from, but also to work for places that are a little bit more sensitive to kinds of topics, right? And so even if I was resistant for whatever reasons, which I'm not, but even if I was, I think my staff would sort of force me to sort of move in this direction, be a little bit more proactive, be a little more thoughtful about how I lean into the local dynamics of the community that we operate in. And so, look, again, being part of a larger nationwide network of franchises, there are certain things that Rita's does corporately that we participate in. And so I'm proud to participate in helping advance research around children's cancer and a whole host of issues that the parent expects us to participate in. But to the tweak to your question about localness and participating in sort of the community dynamic of this issue, we are really making a concerted effort to get in front of schools and to understand what these schools, particularly the schools that are providing our workforce, what matters to them, what they're trying to achieve, to collaborate with them, to help them advance the awareness of whatever initiatives they're participating in, and we can help to be involved with. And that's everything from fundraising to just events they have, sporting events or other kind of events they're putting on. And it seems like wherever we go, not only do kids and teenagers enjoy working with us, they also love our products. Shockingly, right? It's ice cream, and so we're very happy to make donations in terms of our product to causes that are meaningful to schools. This is a little bit off. This is a little bit of a tangent, but we had a school close to our shop last summer who had their air conditioning go out. And so one way they kept the kids enrolled in the summer program was that every day we brought ice to them for a couple days to cool them down because they had no air conditioning. So, look, it takes a lot of different forms, summer camps and counselors. We offer, discounts to and incentives to and other things. But we're still a little new at this. We're trying to find our path and to try to align around some of these things that really are impactful. But I think, Ab, to your bigger point here is that you really can't, in my opinion, again, you can't be on the sidelines with this stuff, and you need to be actively engaged in participating and finding ways to help and give back, because the people coming to your window every day and the people who are taking the orders and working in your shop every day are expecting this.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think you got to be part of it.
Thank you, Gary. Gary, as we start wrapping up now, if you look back in your foray into entrepreneurship and franchising, what would you do differently and why, if you had to do it again?
I do differently? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think, as I said, I think I probably would have been a little quicker to involve other people in the process to the degree that they were available, and to the degree that they were, I guess, connected to the kinds of concepts that I was considering. I just, when you consider that, this was the first time in my life. This may sound a little off, but it's the first time in my life really that I was investing in myself, because I was buying a business that I was using my money to acquire, and it added a dimension of, I think, stress, pressure, however you want to term it, that again created a little bit of length to my decision-making exercise, and I think had I been a little bit quicker to sort of embrace some of the resources I had, that process could have been truncated a little bit, and I probably could have been a little quicker to get going. Now, in retrospect, it actually worked out for me. Some of my diligence, and because I avoided a pandemic in a vertical that probably would have suffered dramatically from the consequences of the shutdown. So, I guess you could look at it. Maybe my situation's a little unique, but as a general statement, I would say that I think I could have been. I would have told Gary 5 years ago that when you're going into this, don't go in solo. Don't go in thinking you're just going to identify something and move. Make sure you have some your board of directors or whatever you want to call it available to help you work through it.
Okay. Wow.
Well, great stuff, Gary. We really appreciate you spending time. It's always great to have a Babson alum, but most importantly, the lessons you shared not only on franchising, but entrepreneurship and leadership and culture. I think you bring a unique skill set of what you did in the past to this venture and gave us a very transparent view into that transition, which we think can benefit a lot of people. We'd love to continue to have you involved. We do have a Center for Family Entrepreneurship, so it sounds like that's the topic for the next one maybe, and explore, your family dynamics and that opportunity. That sounds exciting. But appreciate you being with us and wish you all the best with Rita's and your pathway to scaling.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I'd love to participate any way I can and be a resource, that resource that we just discussed for anybody at Babson who's got questions or is considering this as a direction they want to pursue.
Thank you. Thanks, Gary. And then please, when next you come up here from DC, let us know. We would like to have the opportunity to meet you in person, and hopefully continue this relationship, another aspect of your relationship with Babson. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Gary.
I would love that. You're welcome.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Stars of Franchising.
Stars of Franchising was produced at Babson College, engineered by Travis Gray. Karen Soa is our guest coordinator, and music by Ralph Taylor.
If you like Stars of Franchising, be sure to review us wherever you get your podcasts, and spread the word and share these stories any way you can.